Hey class, this is your teacher, Mr. Cruz. I'm super happy to come to you on another morning. I'm drinking my coffee, but I ran out of actual coffee, so I have cold brew in my hand. Not as good, not as good. But what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about chapter 19 and 20. So, how I'm structuring this video is going to be a little different because I'm going to break it up into two instead of it being one longer video. So I'm going to break it up into two, and I'm going to talk this video about chapter 19. Next video that I post, I'm going to talk about chapter 20. Okay. So in chapter 19, what you see a lot is this sense of responsibility, right? The sense of the trace of the face of Pearl and Hester and Dimmesdale. And what this means is a sense of responsibility that occurs between Dimmesdale and Pearl. Dimmesdale and Hester. Dimmesdale has to reckon with the fact that he's missing his family and, of course, has missed a long period of time. But 19 is a bit of a strange scene because not a lot happens and yet a lot happens. It's one of those scenes in maybe a TV show that you might consider slow because it does not as much action occurs, but actually quite a bit does. You see that there's a tie between Dimmesdale and Hester, and that tie is signified in Pearl. She's like the symbol, or what the book says is she's the oneness of their being together, right? So Pearl, actually, Hawthorne uses the word, she is the hieroglyphic, which is to say a symbol that the Egyptians used back in ancient times. She's the hieroglyphic or the symbol of their unity together. Dimmesdale is being admitted into a circle that he's formed from, okay? And actually, there's a kind of boundary that occurs, a border, if you will, which is the brook that separates Dimmesdale and Hester with Pearl. And actually, Dimmesdale says that there are two worlds between that brook, right? The world in which Hester and Dimmesdale abide in, and the world in which Pearl abides in. Hester and Dimmesdale are both two characters that are pretty much see eye to eye with what's going on, whereas Pearl's not there yet. And actually, you could see a kind of nature culture thing going on here with respect to what I said in the last video as one of the themes going on in this text. Because remember, if you remember this, what I referred to as nature versus culture is this romantic idea that if you move into a certain sphere of society, or if you move into a natural state of things, right, like that's natural or it's nature, right? It's you could say it's the nature of a father to be a father, right? Like that's natural. Dimmesdale does not act naturally though, because not only is he not a part of the family for the first 7 or so years, but he's not a natural father either. In fact, in this chapter, you see that Dimmesdale is acting as someone who doesn't really like children all that much. He doesn't really congregate with children at all. In fact, they run from him, right? Because he's like the minister, and the minister is sort of a scary figure in town. He's the one that could he can point his finger and he can condemn you, and that's a very powerful thing. And Dimmesdale doesn't really have the same kind of warmth that most people do when they typically are around children. And so Dimmesdale acknowledges this. Pearl acknowledges it, but Hester doesn't want to hear that. Hester wants this like unity to be together again. So Hester keeps reinforcing this idea that she's going to come around. She's going to come around. Pearl, come over here. Come over here. I want to introduce you to Dimmesdale. I want you to come and say hi. Now, of course, remember, they think they're going to be a family. They've decided that they're going to go to Europe, and things are looking pretty good in terms of their unity together, right? But there's something that's slowing Pearl's progress to accepting Dimmesdale. And it's connected to this, well, it's connected to Hester more so than Dimmesdale, although it is connected to Dimmesdale. She stands at the opposite side of the brook and she points to Hester, but she's pointing particularly to her breast and saying, remember in chapter 19, I'm sorry, in chapter 18, Hester has thrown off her scarlet letter. So she no longer has that scarlet letter. So her chest is bare. It no longer bears the symbol of that adultery any longer, right? But what's the significance of this? That she will not cross, and she points to the letter A. Hester recognizes this immediately, and eventually what she does is she recognizes that her daughter is making it plain that she has to bear the symbol of adultery. She has to bear the symbol that she's always borne, okay? And in fact, the scarlet letter is sitting there on the floor, right? Um, After a little while, Pearl goes into a bit of a fit. What does this signify? What is this? What is this trying to say about Pearl and about the relationship between Hester and Dimmesdale? Is this a bad omen? Is this maybe foreshadowing something bad to come? Maybe, right? And I don't want to give away too much because, of course, there's a lot more chapters to think about. But maybe it's signifying that, like it's a kind of a bad omen sort of thing, right? Hester, in response to Pearl, who throws this unbelievable fit, Hester puts on her scarlet letter again, but she transforms. Remember, she had a transformation a couple chapters ago to something good, to something positive, right? She was starting to regain a bit of her former beauty. The opposite occurs now. She puts on her scarlet letter, and actually, it says her womanhood, her beauty, starts to fade, right? Immediately. Something is happening to her. It's starting to fade. And because it's starting to fade, it's starting to affect her, not only just physically, but on an emotional and spiritual level. Pearl asks this very, very interesting question. When Hester says, "Oh, I want you to meet the minister," she says, he loves you. And Pearl says, "But does he love us?" Right? It's a very important question. Will he walk hand in hand with us to back to town? And of course, Hester has to respond, "Not yet," but it's going to happen. Okay. Finally, Pearl meets the minister, and he responds by giving her a kiss. And her response is to run away back to the brook and wash the kiss off her forehead. Think about this as the manifestation of the separation that exists between Pearl and Dimmesdale. And there's something happening that eventually, leading into chapter 20, which we'll talk about, is something that you should think about, because that separation, I think, will manifest in what happens in chapters 22 to 24. Okay? Stay tuned for chapter 20. That's going to be another video that we'll go over. Thank you.